Welcome everyone. In the last lecture, under the head of training need identification, we have studied competencies type, and the first type which we have discussed was generic competencies, within which the all competencies which are available among the individual for performing normal responsibility, coordination, implementation between the people is being covered. The next is being specific. Every individual who has been selected for some specific job profile required to adhere with all those kind of responsibilities. So under the job, whatever responsibilities being specified comes under the specific competencies. Thereafter, when we look forward for the individual, those have to support the decision, those have to control the decision of other people, and those are coming with support for other people's in their performances. These are certain competencies which a manager requires. So when an individual who has to go for manager decision making, with respect to that, all those competencies through which an individual can influence others work, can communicate them properly, can have a humanistic behavior with them, and can control their work are coming under your manager competencies. The next type which is available, that is the technical competencies. As it itself says, all those things, all those competencies which are essential to perform, to operate any kind of operation. So if taking an example, if an individual who has to come up with these work under any job profile, so or some operation, some machine has to be operated, with respect to that, that individual requires certain competencies. So these competencies will be coming up as a technical competencies. The another dimension under competency type is your behavioral, to have a proper coordination, to have communication done properly, to have understanding, to have a social belongingness. There are certain behavioral competencies required among the individual. So these are called behavioral competencies. The last competency type is based on the performance. As we know, for every job which we create in the organization requires certain standards of performances. So these standards are called the threshold. Threshold is the point from where we can reach to the level of performance. We can cross the level of performance which is as a standard performance under the job profile. So as we have seen, job analysis consists of three things: job specification, job description, and job evaluation. So under job evaluation, we create the standards which we have to actually receive from any performance. So when we look forward for this knowledge, skills, and ability which are required to receive the standard performance of an individual are the competencies termed as threshold competencies or performance competencies. Now moving ahead for the training need identification or analysis. So when we look forward for the competencies to be identified, need to be analyzed, there is a term which is called competency mapping being used for analyzing, for identifying the training needs of individuals. So as we see, there are some type of employees, the new employees and the existing employees. In case of existing employees, competency model is being utilized. So under the competency model, we have one aspect called your competency mapping. So what does competency mapping means? So competency mapping is what that all the set of competencies which are required to perform any individual task and responsibility under the job profile, or we can say that is a responsibility or the performance which has to be given by a team. So all those responsibilities related performance which has to be given by individual. Against those, we try to identify what are the set of tasks on the basis of which we can acquire success in the standard performance or success in context of receiving standard performance. So when we look forward for competency mapping, it is the mapping of individuals' competencies against the standard task which can be performed by individual to receive the outcome as a standard performance, as a efficient outcome. So at any it can be studied as the process of identification of competencies required to perform successfully a given job or set of tasks at a given point of time. So we have to actually identify those competencies responsible for receiving the some successful outcome in any given responsibility. So now moving ahead into this, the process of competencies falls in this particular way. The first is the clarifying the organization strategies and context. Now organization strategies and context means that for which particular purpose the organization has created their any kind of strategy and what were the basis behind it. So if we can simply understand this aspect, that if what we want to understand or what is being an organization is looking forward for the outcome being understood by the individual employees, then definitely they will be able to match the performance level 2. Or we can say that subordinated individuals goes with the organization's goals. So when we come across with the clarifying organization strategies and context, that is basically how well we can make other person, make employee know about that what is the base or what is the reason behind certain kind of strategies being created. If it is clear, so definitely they will have alignment of their individual goals with the organization. Now, once this is being done, we are in a ease to identify what are the competencies existing with the individual. Individual has got certain set of competencies as present at the time of selection, at the time of performance, which that person has given last. So we have some competencies label being identified. Now, after these identified competency labels, we try to make a gap analysis. That gap analysis will be between the competencies that required to perform successful outcome and the competencies level which any individual possesses at present. So this gap creates a kind of model. So now this gap will be what will be filled by a certain method. Now, when this gap will be created, will be performed by certain, will be covered by a certain method. So, with respect to that particular gap, we come across with what? We come across with gap filling solution. So this gap filling solution is a kind of competency modeling. Now this competency modeling we have created a simple example. किसी प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए हमने एक सोल्यूशन ड्राफ्ट किया, वो सोल्यूशन हमारा सही है या नहीं है, अब हम उसको क्या करेंगे, चेक करेंगे. So that solution which is available to solve the problem is a competency model. Now we will check whether the solution is right or not. For that we will be coming up with what? Validating, refining and implementation. So validating, we know already that whether we are able to receive the outcome through that particular model, or we can say through that particular method of identification, we are able to receive the competencies gap properly or not, that we are able to check. If yes, then fine. If not, then whatever lacunas are available that need to be refined, that need to be removed, that need to be modified, and then that particular model will be implemented. Once the model being implemented, the next thing is in implementation, we'll have what? We'll have some information being collected. This information will be processed. So the thing which is available in this regard, that is how we are going to collect the your information. This information collection will be consisting one method that is called focus group interviews. Now, focus group interviews that we have not discussed in the case of types of interviews, but it is a type of interview which is majorly not used for selection purpose but for the purpose of getting some centralized idea, crux, meaning related to the things from the mouth of those people responsible, those are responsible for such matter, those are affected from such matter. तो हम focus group को ज़्यादा use करते हैं इस context में, in context of research. So focus group interviews are what that in which we project certain kind of thought among the people, those are related to that particular thought. Then this thought being discussed over discussed over that group among that particular group, and a conclusion being drawn related to that. So when we look forward for any competency model, we just consider there is a kind of questionnaire being developed. So this questionnaire being given to those respective people, they discuss about the questionnaire, they try to identify which factors are actually relevant, which are not relevant. They give their point of view into this particular case. They give their inputs in that, and whatever inputs we have received, that we further analyze. Now, after the analysis of those particular inputs received from individual, we come across with what? We come across with benchmark creation. Now, benchmark study is that we evaluate, we identify that what is the thing differentiating between the standards and the information which we have received. So, this is how we try to map individuals' competency. Mapping individuals' competency is ultimately providing what? Under the, or इसको simply हम लोग सकते हैं कि under the circumstances of standard performance, where the individual is existing right now, where the existing competencies of individual is. So that is under your competency mapping process. Let's move ahead with one particular example of competency mapping. इस competency mapping को हम skill matrix के तरीके से organization में use करते हैं. अब इस skill matrix में as we can see there is the thing being created for a team. तो ये हमारे पास team based skill matrix available है. अब अगर आप देखें तो हमारे पास क्या available है, different teams, team A, team B, team B, team C, D, ये हमारे पास अलग अलग types के टीम्स अवेलेबल है. इसके अंदर हमने क्या किया है, कॉम्पिटेंसी लेवल को नंबर कर दिया है, उसको नंबर्स प्रोवाइड कर दिए हैं. देयर इज 4 number being provided for those individual who has got highest level of competencies, यानी कि वो competencies जिसके बेसिस पे वो अपने काम को खुद इंडिपेंडेंटली कर सकता है. We have assigned 3 numbers of competencies to those people who required some support occasionally, not always. Most of the time they perform their responsibility of their own, but sometimes they require support from outside. We have allocated 2 numbers for those people those have got low competencies, means they whenever they are performing certain kind of work they require support, and we have provided lowest number being 1 for the people those haven't got competencies and required everything to be trained off. Means ये जो 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers हैं, they are representing the level of competency of individual members within the team. Now, when we look forward for such kind of aspect, तो हमारे पास क्या है, उस टीम के related हम efficiencies को कर सकते हैं. We can come up with a matrix for them, and this is being shown into it, so we can identify from there that there are certain yellow and aspects being available for team, even the red aspect being available. These are the least competencies level available among the individual teams, and these teams are required training in certain dimensions. So these are, we can say, skill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, under which the